Picture this: southeastern Turkey, autumn 2025. Archaeologists brush away 11,000 years of soil, and something stares back at them, a face. Carved into stone. Before humans planted their first seed. This isn't just another archaeological discovery. This is the moment we have to rewrite everything we thought we knew about how civilization began. For over a century, we told ourselves a simple story. Agriculture came first, then villages, then temples and gods. Farming gave us the surplus to dream big. But what if we had it backwards? What if belief came first, and agriculture followed? The temples of southeastern Turkey are forcing us to ask that question, and the answers are rewriting human history. Let me set the scene. It's the end of the last ice age, around 10,000 BCE. Glaciers are retreating across Europe. Mammoths still roam the steppes. In what's now Turkey, bands of hunter-gatherers follow the seasons. They hunt gazelle, gather wild wheat, move with the rhythms of the land, no farms, no permanent homes. Or so we thought. Because these supposedly primitive nomads were about to do something that would take us 12,000 years to find. They were building cathedrals in stone, massive monuments that would stand for millennia, temples constructed 2,000 years before anyone figured out how to plant a crop. Karahan Tepe dates to between 10,000 and 9,500 BCE. That's approximately 12,000 years ago. To put that in perspective, Stonehenge wouldn't exist for another 6,000 years. These sites weren't found in isolation. They're part of a network. Turkish archaeologists call it Taş Tepeler, the Stone Hills. At least 12 related Neolithic sites clustered in the same region. The most famous is Göbekli Tepe. You may have heard of it. It made headlines in the early 2000s. But Karahan Tepe, it appears to be even older, and in some ways more significant. Because Karahan Tepe wasn't just a ceremonial center. Excavations reveal it was both a residence and a temple. People lived here, and they worshipped here. For decades, this region was overlooked. Göbekli Tepe was actually discovered in 1963. It wasn't until 1994 that German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt recognized what he was looking at. And excavations at Karahan Tepe didn't begin in earnest until 2019. What they found has stunned the archaeological world. A massive amphitheater-like structure measuring almost 17 meters in diameter, roughly the size of a large tennis court. Stone benches line the walls. Human and animal sculptures emerge from the rock, and carved heads are embedded directly into the walls themselves, staring out at whoever gathered here. The T-shaped pillars are believed to represent stylized human figures. The horizontal top is the head, the vertical shaft, the body. They're watching, standing guard. But here's what makes the October 2025 discovery so remarkable. Among all these pillars, at Göbekli Tepe, at Karahan Tepe, across the entire Taş Tepeler network, not a single one had ever shown a human face. Until now. In October 2025, archaeologists found the first human face ever carved on a T-shaped pillar. Necmi Karul, the excavation director from Istanbul University, called it a breakthrough. The first finding of a human face on a T-shaped pillar in all of these sites. Why does this matter? Think about what it means to carve a face. Not an abstract symbol. Not a stylized figure. A face, eyes that look back at you. Someone 12,000 years ago knew how to represent themselves. They saw their own humanity as worth preserving in stone. Forever. This discovery, according to archaeologists, reveals a highly organized society with its own symbolic world and belief structures, overturning earlier ideas of a primitive Neolithic world. These weren't simple hunter-gatherers scraping by. They organized labor on a massive scale. They quarried limestone blocks weighing tons. They carved them with stone tools. And they did all of this without metal tools, without wheels, without draft animals. Everything by human hands, human ingenuity, and what can only be called faith. Here's what challenges everything we thought we knew. These structures were built approximately 2,000 years before the widespread adoption of agriculture. The traditional timeline said farming came first, surplus grain, settled villages, leisure time. Then, and only then, could people afford the luxury of religion and art. But Karahan Tepe flips that assumption on its head. These hunter-gatherers had no farms, yet they built monuments that dwarf anything their descendants would create for millennia. Some archaeologists now propose a radical revision. What if religion didn't follow from agriculture? What if agriculture followed from religion? Think about it. Thousands of people gathering in one place to build these temples, for months, maybe years at a time. You can't feed that many people by hunting and gathering alone. You need a reliable food source. You need, eventually, to plant things, to stay in one place long enough to tend them. Agriculture becomes necessary to support the temple. The temple doesn't follow civilization. The temple creates civilization. That's the revolution these sites represent. And there's another mystery. Around 8,000 BCE, after centuries of use, these sites were deliberately buried. Someone filled them in, carefully, intentionally, not destroyed, preserved, as if they were putting these temples to sleep, protecting them for some future we can only guess at. Why? We don't know. The builders left no written records. Writing wouldn't be invented for another 5,000 years. Whatever their reasons, they took them to their graves. What we do know is transforming our understanding of human capability. These weren't primitive people. They were architects, astronomers, believers. The precision of the carvings rivals anything produced thousands of years later. The scale of organization would challenge modern project managers. And the belief that drove them. Powerful enough to motivate generations of builders working with nothing but stone tools in their own hands for centuries. There's a lesson in that. We like to think we're special. That modern humans, with our technology, our science, are fundamentally different from our ancestors. But some 2 years ago, people looked up at the same stars we see tonight. They wondered the same things we wonder. They built monuments to questions we're still asking. Who are we? Where did we come from? What happens when we die? These pillars suggest those questions are as old as humanity itself. If you're curious to see this for yourself, you might consider planning a visit to Şanlıurfa, Turkey. The city's archaeology museum houses artifacts from both Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe. The excavations are ongoing, with Turkish cultural authorities releasing new documentation regularly. This is living archaeology, new discoveries happening every season. For deeper scholarly context, consider Klaus Schmidt's book, Göbekli Tepe, a Stone Age sanctuary in southeastern Anatolia. It's the foundational text for understanding these sites. The key takeaway: challenge your assumptions about primitive peoples. The builders of Karahan Tepe achieved feats we still struggle to explain, and they did it before farming existed. The story of human civilization isn't a straight line from primitive to advanced, it's messier than that. More surprising. And these temples prove it. 12,000 years ago, before anyone planted a seed, humans gathered in southeastern Turkey to carve faces in stone and build monuments to their gods. They left us no words, no explanations. Just these pillars, standing silent for millennia, waiting to be found. And when we did find them, when the soil finally gave up its secrets, they changed everything we thought we knew about who we are. If you're finding this kind of history compelling, consider hitting subscribe. We explore stories like this every week, the untold moments that shape the world we live in. The temples of Taş Tepeler are still giving up their secrets. Every season brings new discoveries, new questions, new reasons to reconsider what we think we know. And that human face, it's staring at us across 12,000 years. A reminder that the people who built these temples weren't so different from us after all. They wondered. They questioned. They built. They believed. And now, after all this time, they're teaching us something we'd forgotten. Civilization didn't begin with agriculture. It began with a question, a wonder, a need to reach for something beyond the daily struggle to survive. Before Stonehenge, before the pyramids, before the written word, there was Karahan Tepe, and a face in the stone, watching the ages pass. What else have we forgotten? What other stories are still buried, waiting? The past keeps surprising us. And that's what makes history worth knowing. Thanks for listening. This has been History That Hits.